I call Stuart Nash, 5 minutes.
Thank you much, Mr Speaker. I mean, let's first put it on the table that, in my view, sex offending against children is the ultimate betrayal of trust. It is that fundamental breaking of a social contract that exists between people who live in the community and the community itself. And I actually don't think, to be honest, there's such a thing as a disproportionate punishment for child sex offenders. But what I do want to see is money spent in a way that keeps our communities safe. So what is this bill about, Mr Speaker? Well, what it means that all child sex offenders will have to register or be on this register if they're 18 years or over, or a sentence to imprisonment. They will have to update the register annually. They'll have to update the register within 72 hours of a change of details or within 48 hours prior to travel. What happens is, depending on the sentence, they will stay on the register for either 8 years or 15 years or life. Now, the people or the ministries that will have access to this register are the Police, Ministry of Social Development, Housing New Zealand and Corrections. And the reason why they have access to the register is so they can manage the risk to the public safety posed by known sex offenders who are living within the community. Now, I don't think there is anyone in this House that would disagree with the intent of that in any way, shape or form, because it does have to be managed in the interests of public safety. And according to the bill, police and corrections will have to inform third parties that they consider necessary to protect the safety of the community. So the police and corrections do have the mandate to go out to the community and say, be aware, there is a known sex offender living at this address or living within this community. But, Mr Speaker, the real concern I have about this is the fact that the police or the corrections just don't have the resources to do this. So what I would like to see before I supported this in any way, shape or form is assurance from the police that they are going to really police this bill and manage this in a way that is going to achieve the objectives. Because, as Derek Ball mentioned, if they don't do this and we have recidivist sex offenders living in our community with a high risk of offending, then this bill will mean absolutely nothing. So there does have to be an absolute assurance from police and corrections that they are going to manage this in a way. I do have a concern that this will be leaked, and I think that's a very real concern, because I think if we put ourselves in the situation of someone from police, corrections, or Housing New Zealand, or Ministry of Social Development, and we saw on the register that a known sex offender was living beside a friend of ours or beside a school, it would be incredibly difficult, and it would be a real moral dilemma, I believe, Mr Speaker, on whether to speak out or not, on whether to inform a school or a friend with children that a known sex offender was living beside them. So I think the moral dilemma around how to keep such a register confidential is very real, and we must sort of understand that. But the one thing that must lead policy and legislation in this House is evidence. And Alfred Naro talked about this. And, Mr Speaker, you will not find, if you look at my Facebook site, I am no apologist for child offenders in any way, shape or form. But what we need to do is develop legislation that is based on good evidence. And what I have read, Mr Speaker, is that the evidence suggests that making such a register public actually does not do any good to the community whatsoever. It does not stop child offending in any way, shape or form, nor does it protect the community in a way which we all want it to. If the evidence pointed the other way, if I had evidence that said this making a register public would protect our community, then I'd be all for it. But, Mr Speaker, the evidence I have seen says that making a register public, in fact, does not protect the community. So just to sum up, Mr Speaker, every single member in this House, I have absolutely no doubt, has the safety of our community at heart. We have the victims as the #1 group that we want to protect, and we have our community safety at heart. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. But what we must do is ensure that if this bill passes, there is the resources in place in corrections and police to give effect to it and make sure that our communities are safe. Thank you very much.
I call Dr. Parmji.